Hello, Ren of Taurus Rising, back with you again for our weekly Wellness with Tarot. We are continuing our Fool's Journey series, and today the Fool arrives at my favorite card, to be honest. Some of you might think that's crazy, but it's the Tower card. And I believe that we had the Tower visited us last week, not as our main card, but as part of the reading. I believe it was either last week or the week before. So it's sort of, a little preview. Today we have the Tower, and I'm using the Radiant Rider-Waite deck just because it's the traditional kind of symbolism, which I really like to kind of work with. It's a good foundation. So here we go. We've got the Tower, and the Tower, as you can see, we've got some chaos going on here. The Tower has been struck and people are jumping out to save themselves. And there's some other imagery here too, like the crown. Like the crown represents mastery. So that's kind of just a cool little thing in there. Mastery of, self, of challenges, like learning new skills and gaining mastery and confidence in them. And then of course fire, which is sort of like transformation forged by fire. So there's a lot going on here, but the vibe of this card is really about like upshake, when you're not following your path, when the universe needs to shake you up and rock everything. So you can kind of think of the Tower as almost like a rock bottom, some sort of big upheaval to get you onto the right trajectory. And I also want to say that sometimes it's not that you're like, it's not that you're attracting any sort of chaos or upheaval into your life. Sometimes things happen too that just shakes things up, and you are forced to have a new trajectory and maybe even like get really even deeper with yourself and who you are and what your gifts are and your purpose and mission. So there's sort of kind of two ways you can think about the Tower. The Tower is like a upheaval from the universe when you're not following your path. It could also be, maybe it's that you're not necessarily not following your path. It's just something happens that shakes things up, and it just changes how you see things, and it helps you really not settle for what's not really serving you. It helps you see the sacredness of life, the reverence for life and your life, and that you don't want to waste any time or give away your energy or time to things that really don't really matter to you. So really it's about upshake, which leads to a more authentic path, is what the Tarot is about. That's why it's my favorite card. I've had many a Tower moments. Recently I've had many, and they're not fun in the middle of it, but once you get past it and you find acceptance, things start to happen for you. So that's my personal experience there. But so we've got the Tower, and now we ask the Tarot, what does the Tower have to teach us? Where do we need the Tower in our lives? All right, and I'm using the Mystical Moments deck today. I've been using that lately. I think it's a really pretty deck. Very modern, like new, like kind of more modern imagery. Very detailed. And it's a really pretty deck. And it's got that nice new deck smell. One thing I also like about this deck is very silvery, as you can see on the edges. It just feels very luxurious. All right. Where do we need the Tower? Okay, I'm going to let it settle for a moment and then pick the card. This one's sitting over here. No, I don't know if it's that one. I think this is our card. That's really funny. Another major arcana card, of course. This is a card we have already visited. The Justice card. So the Justice came earlier in the Fool's Journey. It comes kind of a third of the way through, and the Justice is about kind of like the consequences of your actions. We're taking responsibility, Not necessarily that you've done anything wrong, but it's more about taking responsibility. Like, for example, perhaps maybe you overspent, and versus being like, oh, it's not fair, I should make more money, like finding something to blame. It's more about just accepting accountability and like, okay, this is how it went. Now I know for next time. Humans, oftentimes when things go wrong, we want to blame. There has to be a bad guy. But sometimes it's just not that simple. Sometimes there isn't a bad guy. There isn't anyone to blame. It's just the cookie crumbled a certain way. And you kind of have to look at the cause and the effect. So justice is about taking responsibility. You could even see there's the balance scales here. I think this is really cool, the imagery in this, because it's a lot like the traditional justice card with the scales and the sword, but it's this figure who's kind of among skyscrapers and like more of a modern kind of setting than like the traditional deck. So the justice card is about responsibility, being accountable for your actions, be them good or bad, right? It's what you reap, what you sow. If you really prepared for a test, you're going to go into the test and you're going to feel confident, and you're probably going to get a better result than if you understudied for the test. So it's really all about cause and effect and taking accountability and reflection upon, okay, this thing happened, now I know from this. Or even like, okay, receiving feedback. I did something well at work. These are my strengths and my weaknesses. This is where I need to improve. And this is where I'm doing good, and I want to even get even better. It seems like this time of year, a lot of people have like reviews at work, and getting their raises or, whatever, or renewing contracts. So kind of think about that, like all of the actions that you've taken, all the things that you do, lead up to now in every area of your life. So that could be in health, that could be in money, if even like a hobby, something you're trying to get better at, work, some sort of work skill, if you're studying something, if you're in school or in some sort of training program, your actions, lead to the outcome, you reap what you sow. So this is sort of more of a vague card. So this isn't really telling us a specific area, but this is an invitation for you to think about what area of your life maybe you've been shirking a little bit, or maybe not taking accountability, or maybe even resting on your laurels, like, oh no, I'm doing fine, I'm doing really well, so I can coast. Maybe where have you been complacent? So thinking about that beyond, work and performance and those sort of more tangibles. Also, I also want to invite you to think more internal. Like, are you trying to be more honest in your life? Or are you trying to be more, like, maybe not gossip so much? There's some other things maybe that you want to take accountability for your actions. Maybe you want to communicate more clearly with people versus expecting them to read your mind, or maybe being passive aggressive, or maybe having expectations and then getting resentful because people didn't meet your expectations and you're working on that. So this could be an external sort of thing where you're actually looking at progress or actions, like things like money, things so there's a more tangible cause and effect. But this also could apply to internal growth. So taking inventory around, okay, maybe I'm actually not being that thoughtful of a friend. Maybe my time management isn't being great. Like maybe I'm being late to stuff and I'm not being as intentional. So those kinds of things. So think about external or internal things where you need to take accountability for your side of the street. In the areas where you're doing well and the areas you're maybe not doing so well. So maybe this is also a moment for you to like, actually, I'm doing really well at that. I'm really glad that these steps I've been taking have been paying off at this thing. So think about that. This is also interesting timing because though it isn't the new year yet, we haven't even hit the solstice yet. But we're getting to that time where people are thinking about and reflecting on their year and their new year and how they want that to go. So thinking about that too. So now bringing the tower in. If there's an area maybe where, okay, let's say you're not really taking accountability, you're kind of being complacent, maybe you're not even taking, maybe you're blaming, there's some area of your life where you're really not taking responsibility or accountability for your side of the street, be that some sort of concrete way or an internal thing. Well, if you're not doing that and you're just kind of head in the sand, you will probably have a tower moment, where it could be a breakup or a friend breakup or getting fired or some sort of thing like that. So if you're not really being mindful and thinking about actually how you're going about life and how your actions are, impacting others and the world around you, there's going to be some sort of shakeup, intervention, if you will. And so, but, otherwise also, if maybe you're not really leaning into your strengths, or like if you're really not thinking about how you really want to live, you're just coasting along, also the universe is going to like shake things up. So basically, if you have your head in the sand in any sort of way and not being responsible or accountable for your actions or how you want to live or how you want to show up, there will be a tower moment for you. And so it's good to get out in front of that, because if you can make those changes before the side swap, you won't be blindsided so much. But that's just how things happen. If you're not really, if you're just coasting along and avoiding and not really, being mindful and being, living in integrity, it can't last. It really can't. Like something's going to happen where it shakes things up. So that's where we need the tower. Is the tower energy is kind of like a warning, a cautionary tale, if you will, that you really need to start taking accountability for your actions and your performance and how you're living your life, thinking about reaping what you sow and those kinds of things. Living in integrity essentially is what this card is about. And if you're out of integrity or out of alignment in any sort of way, there will be a tower moment. So this is cautionary tale. And now I'm going to do that thing where I pull a bonus card from the bottom. I think that because the tower has shown up multiple times, like recently, not just as our Fool's Journey card, but as a card in the reading, like that's just, extra motivation to really think about how things are going. Okay, and our card underneath, oh, this is looking cool. Oh, that's so hilarious. The Fool, which is, or the beginning card of the Fool's Journey. I haven't seen the Fool in this deck yet. It's very cool. It's different. We've got more of like feminine figure, and she is standing like at the top of a crocodile, it seems, in a beautiful kind of field of flower. They kind of look like peonies. It's very green. That's what stands out to me. It's very green, which makes me think of heart chakra. So, and the Fool is about new beginnings. The Fool is like the fresh soul, unjaded soul who's starting this new incarnation and starting their journey, which we are on in this series. And so our bonus card is the Fool. Okay, so which to me is kind of perfect, because if you're, somehow out of integrity in any sort of way, not necessarily from, necessarily a moral way, but you're not really truly living or taking responsibility for your own happiness or well-being or living life authentically and aligned, there will be a shakeup, the Tower. And after the shakeup, that will lead to something new, like a new journey, a new trajectory, a new timeline, if you will. So that's something to look forward to. That's the positive that happens after the Tower. Well, technically a different card happens after the Tower, which you will learn about next week. But that is essentially the energy of that post-Tower. We have hopefully a new timeline where you're getting to start fresh in some sort of way. So just another little recap. Our Fool's Journey card of the week is the Tower, which is about upshake to get you back onto the right track, or some sort of chaos that brings about transmutation, transformation. Where do we need that? As well, wherever area of your life maybe you're not totally living in integrity, there's some sort of, you're thinking about reaping what you sow, keeping things in balance. consequences of actions. If there's something that's not adding up there in a way that should be good, or that's keeping things in balance or in alignment, you will have a tower moment. And then post tower moment, there is some sort of new, fresh journey, new timeline. All right. Well, that is our Fool's Journey reading for the week. I will see y'all next week, and we'll find out what card comes after the tower in our Fool's Journey. I'm hoping that y'all are having a happy holiday season, and I will see y'all next week.